The Musculoskeletal Transplant Foundation is the nation's largest tissue bank. Since 1987, MTF has distributed over 4 million tissue grafts for implantation.
The MTF Board of Directors is composed of over 40 allograft surgeons, which makes us the only tissue bank in which the Board of Directors is composed entirely of users of the tissue.
The processing of Flex HD was designed to maintain the architecture of native skin and important attributes of collagen and elastin.
From the start, we brought together advisory boards so we could solicit input from the surgeons to develop the design criterion. We determined that there were 5 key attributes that Flex HD had to provide.
The first attribute was to ensure that our acellular tissue provides a low risk of chronic inflammatory response. Second, we wanted to inactivate the bacteria in the tissue to minimize the risk of infection.
It was important that the matrix remain intact since it's necessary for ingrowth and revascularization. We were also focused on preserving the protein components of the tissue since they're critical for assisting in cell migration.
The fifth attribute was to ensure that the strength of the tissue was sufficient for wound reinforcement and repair.
MTF continues to evolve as we seek to improve how tissue is recovered, processed, and preserved.
The process begins with tissue acquisition or recovery. Recovery specialists are on call 24/7 to perform an on-site assessment of the donor. The assessment is the first step in ensuring the safety of tissue that will eventually become Flex HD.
The recovery specialists work closely with the MTF assessment team, which is composed entirely of nurses, registered nurses, not clerical staff. And together they conduct a thorough assessment of the donor's eligibility. The MTF medical directors are on call 24/7 to assist with the assessment of the donor. We are all physicians with either infectious disease or pathology training, with autonomy in our decision-making.
Assessments begin with an examination of the donor's medical history, social history, and a physical examination.
MTF never accepts donors that have been deferred by another tissue bank for medical reasons. MTF does not accept any donors from outside of the United States for processing and distribution domestically.
Approved tissue is surgically removed within 24 hours in an aseptic environment and is triple packaged for shipment to MTF's facility. Each processing step takes place in a different lab, with the tissue being passed from one lab to the next. The first lab is preparation.
First, a sample of the solution that the tissue is in is sent to an independent lab for bioburden testing.
MTF's pre-processing serology and nucleic acid testing must meet or exceed both FDA and AATB requirements.
Only donors who pass all of the tests are released by one of our medical directors for preparation.
We cut the tissue into one of 4 thicknesses. They range from ultra-thin to ultra-thick. We do that using a proprietary device that ensures the accuracy of each cut.
The tissue is then frozen. The maximum time from initial recovery until freezing is 120 hours.
The tissue remains in quarantine until all of the tests are completed, and then a second assessment team composed of at least 2 nurses and a medical director review the entire record again.
Once approved, the tissue is cleared for further processing. Before decellularization begins, the lab, air, processing solution, and water are all tested to assure sterility.
The tissue is soaked for 24 hours in a high-concentration sodium chloride bath to promote cell lysis.
Next, a 24-hour non-ionic detergent bath removes cellular debris from the tissue. The decellularized tissue is placed in a sealed vessel for further processing.
Before disinfection occurs, the lab, air, and processing solution are tested for sterility. The solution is also tested for proper concentration.
Disinfection is unique in that the entire process is automated. In fact, our technicians do not interact with the tissue at all. Everything is done in a sealed vessel.
Bacteria and viruses are rendered inactive by a disinfection solution consisting of peracetic acid, propylene glycol, and alcohol. The disinfection process is validated to provide 6 lux reduction of human pathogens in half the processing time.
After processing, the room and air are tested again for sterility, with samples going to an independent lab for verification. The final step is packaging. Tissue is transported here inside the sealed disinfection vessel.
2 technicians perform the entire process, while 1 technician solely handles the tissue. The other performs the packaging, labeling, and data entry.
The tissue is cut to its final size, the accuracy of thickness is verified, and final quality control check is performed. Samples of sealed pouches are routinely sent to a quality control laboratory for seal integrity testing.
Flex HD is moist packaged in ethanol and is sealed in a foil inner pouch and a Tyvek outer pouch.
The packaged Flex HD remains in quarantine for another 3 to 4 weeks until all the tests are completed, and then the medical director releases for distribution.
MTF adheres to standards that ensure consistent high quality.
While FDA mandates only 9 screening criteria, and AATB an additional 9, MTF goes over and above that and screens for more than 30 different diseases. We must meet or exceed these measures to satisfy our demanding quality control.
MTF also demonstrates their high standards in other ways.
MTF is also a registered medical device manufacturer and is one of the only tissue banks that has achieved ISO 9001 quality certification.
I think we all feel there's something special about what we do, from the science behind the research and development to the quality of the processing, and the awareness that we're dealing with precious donated human tissue, which in products like Flex HD improve the quality of life of the recipient.